Hello and welcome to Out of the Fog. I'm Karen Hager. Each week at this time, we gather for spiritual conversation with enlightening guests, and I'm glad you're here. You can find out more about my work as an intuitive guide and spiritual teacher at karenhager.com. Now then, my guest today says that spiritual and paranormal experiences can open perspective and improve psychological health. The Reverend Karen E. Herrick is with me today to share what she's learned about this intersection through many years of clinical practice and in her own personal experience. She says we're not alone in meeting life challenges, that no matter what our situation, spiritual and paranormal resources are here now for us to call on them, and that we can use them to change things for the better. Are you ready to meet her? The Reverend Karen E. Herrick, Ph.D., completed her master's degree at Rutgers University and her Ph.D. in social work at Union Institute and University. For 30 years, she's shared her clinical expertise in private practice and by lecturing on dysfunctional addictive homes, dissociation, and grief and loss from a Jungian perspective. Dr. Herrick's decades of research consist of paranormal experiences that have been widely reported and appear to be fairly common. These phenomena have been the subject of psychical research for well over a century. Her new book is Psychology of the Soul and the Paranormal, and you can find out more about all of this at kareneherrick.com. Karen, welcome to Out of the Fog.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
I'm glad you're here. So you cite the statistic that between 40 and 50% of people have had what you might call a spiritual experience. But what does that mean? What is a spiritual experience? And I'm wondering if it's maybe actually a lot higher than 40, 50%.
Oh, I think probably it is. But different types of spiritual experiences are, for instance, an out-of-body experience, a near-death experience, seeing your deceased mom in your bedroom at night, having all kinds of electrical problems in your house after a death of a loved one, and a Kundalini experience, a reincarnation experience. So just anything that isn't your normal waking state. And transpersonal psychology, which is a psychology that handles all of these types of experiences, not just waking state, believes in studying life on other levels of consciousness. So that seeing spirits, mental telepathy, mediumship, all of that. And the statistic, you're right, is 40 to 50%. In 1994, it was 30 to 40%. And I believe it's much higher. And if we could, that's why I want to educate, because if people could realize there's a difference between a spiritual experience and mental illness, then they wouldn't be so afraid to tell us about what happened to them. And the difference is that if you are having a psychotic episode, you're more, what do I say, agitated, you're more believing that I just talked to Christ, I just talked to Muhammad, and you have grandiose feelings about that. If you have a spiritual experience, you're humbled by the experience because it touched your heart and your head at the same time. And you're having these feelings of awe and wonderment and, just beautiful things. And maybe for the first time, believe there is a God. So there's a big difference in, having psychosis and having a spiritual experience. I think mainly people need to know that. So if you know the differences, then you won't walk around feeling afraid, because people that have near-death experiences, they say that most of them wait 7 years before they tell anybody. And I can't imagine what that's like, just walking around thinking, I had this weird thing happen to me and I might be crazy and I hope nobody notices.
So sometimes there can be that feeling of shame or that feeling of fear about telling someone else, because that near-death experience, which meant so much to me, and I'm holding it for 7 years, if I tell you and you make fun of me or you don't believe me or you tell me that that's against the precepts of our accepted religious context, that might make me feel diminished too, not just crazy, but maybe smaller, sadder.
Yes, yes. And a spiritual experience usually is between a person and a higher being that sometimes goes beyond a specific religious affiliation. So maybe they've had something that even their religion says is not possible. So their ego is very confused about, you know, nobody ever said that this could happen to me.
In your work, do you find that people who can share these experiences as part of community find others like them? Is that a part of the way that this can help with mental health?
Oh, certainly. Yeah. I know I was doing some training years ago, probably in the 2000, I don't know, maybe four, let's say, in California, and they had self-help groups like AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, but they would have them for near-death people and out-of-body people, and I thought that was wonderful. And I don't know if they still have that in California, but that was a wonderful thing because you could walk in and meet other people that have experienced what you have, and they don't look so crazy to you.
Um, I love that. Why do you think some people are more likely to experience these things than others? Or maybe we're all able to perceive other realms or beings, but we just need to learn how?
I think we all are able to perceive it. I know Christ said that anybody could have the gifts that he had. However, some people don't believe that, and if you don't believe, you're not going to be able to do, what you might want to do. Um, but the people that come to me, I started the Center for Children of Alcoholics 30 some years ago, and so they were people that were raised in alcoholic and addictive homes. And I didn't know this then, but they had done research that the people that were raised in trauma situations had the ability to disassociate easier because they had done that all their life, maybe not to be in the room where their mom and dad were fighting or, where the Christmas tree was going down again and that kind of stuff. So they could pretend they were at the beach or whatever and leave the situation. Well, because you have that ability to disassociate as you're growing up, then if you're on the operating table in a hospital or if you're in a car accident, you're going to be able to disassociate and leave in a spiritual experience easier than somebody who wasn't raised with all that trauma. And I think that's why I had all these people that were coming to me because they all came from these, traumatic homes.
I don't think of dissociation as a as a tool that's always healthy though, because if my stuff is unresolved, if I grow up when I needed to dissociate in order for my survival, I may take that into the rest of my life where I don't need to do it to survive anymore. So where's that healthy intersection where I can use my ability to dissociate, my familiarity with kind of getting out of my way and letting other things happen to me? How do you, as a therapist, find that healthy intersection there?
Well, most people just find it when they leave their body or, or when they have this deja vu that, they were on the Titanic and they died with all this water. So that's when it happens. I don't have the answer as to where is the fine line there. I do believe that your soul is in charge of the types of experiences that you have, and that each one of us would have a different spiritual experience depending on how we were raised and the different belief systems we were taught.
Is it safe then to explore these things because our soul is with us, because we're always held in that protection? Or is there caution needed before we go jumping right into let's try to have near-death experiences? Or right, is it safe to do all this exploring?
Well, as long as you're exploring, in an education way, you're reading books, you're watching, um, TV. For instance, there's a great Netflix Surviving Death series, which is been on for 2 years, and they have 5 1-hour shows about different paranormal experiences. And the first one is on near death, and it's a wonderful explanation. All these PhDs that have had near death experiences. So, if you're watching that, you're just learning. And if you're reading a book about somebody who had one, you're just learning that this is what happens. And if you're supposed to have one, it's going to happen to you at some level. And yes, you will be guided. I believe you have all kinds of, you have a guardian angel and spiritual guides or who would help you. They're all kind of waiting up there for you to have something more spiritual so that they can guide you.
So if we're curious about that kind of spiritual and paranormal experience, is there a safe way to invite those in? I'm speaking from my own experience. I grew up a very weird psychic child. I asked my guides to shut up and go away when I was about 4.5, and I locked everything down tight, super, super tight. I'm also from an alcoholic family. I locked
Uh-huh.
all that stuff down tight, tight, tight. And when I was in my 40s, everything came flooding back in a way that was not always super pleasant to experience, but that's what opened me up now to do the work that I'm doing today.
Right.
Um, is there a safe way to open up and invite paranormal experience, and spiritual experience in a way that doesn't require us to go too far? I think sometimes, especially people who've had abuse and trauma, we can be kind of all or nothing in our thinking.
Hmm. Um, well, perhaps you could just get ready by meditating, learning how to meditate, um, and also what would be helpful is to lower your mental state. So you have times in your daytime or weekly where you don't think, because thinking stops us from going into the spiritual realm, I think. And so you garden or you take the dog out or you just have moments or minutes when you're meditating, listening to quiet music, and that you can handle silence and just being with yourself.
I love that because overanalyzing is, of course, the death of almost everything.
Right.
Um,
That's right.
and so I love that willingness maybe just to be where it's quiet, just to be. I've taught intuitive development for a long time, and one of the things I ask students to do is start to try to catch themselves in the present moment.
Right.
That ability to, without thinking about it, just surprise yourself by being exactly where you are. And it's in those moments, at least it has been for me, when I've had spiritual and paranormal experiences. It's been in those moments when I wasn't thinking about it, wasn't asking for it, wasn't. Those are the moments when things happen, when the circle expands a little bit, when we can see a little bit more. Has it been that way for you? I know you share a lot of your personal experiences in the book.
Well, yes, I had a spiritual experience where this other breath came into my body, but I was doing a holotropic breath work, which was started by a doctor who had been giving people LSD and ecstasy, and then they would have spiritual experience, and he was recording those, and then that got to be a no-no. You can't do that anymore. So he developed this breathing technique where you forcefully breathed, and they played music to activate your chakra system. And I had no idea what would happen. I was just there because I was studying transpersonal psychology. And so I, just laid down and they played the music. And one of the rules was don't think, just breathe. So I try to use that in life, but because it was the first time that I'd been told not to think. So I just breathed and I was laying there feeling good for a while and feeling all these different things in your body. And then all of a sudden I brought my legs up in the birthing position and this other breath came into my body and I thought, whose breath is that? And then I thought, don't think, just breathe. So I just kept breathing and the breath kept breathing with me when I wasn't breathing. So we both breathed for a while. And then after that, I had asked my partner, because you had a partner to get you water or whatever, if he would push on my feet. And he didn't push on my feet right, whatever that meant. And then the trainers came over, and one guy got behind me on the floor, and he said, "Hold on to my arms and just push." And so I did. I pushed and I pushed and I pushed. And during that time, I had the feeling or thought, "Where is my mother?" And I thought, "Why am I thinking that? Don't think, just breathe." So I just kept breathing. And then after it was all over, they said I looked like this little baby, and I had experienced my original birth of coming into Earth. And I'll tell you, it must be a lot easier to die, I think. But then I stood up, and when I had come to this conference, which was in Connecticut at a nunnery on the water, I I thought these people were weird because they believed in reincarnation and all these different things that I didn't believe in at the time. But when I stood up and I looked around the room, and half of them are laying on the floor breathing, and I'm thinking, I just love them. I just had this awe and this wonderful feeling that we were all connected, and that we, all of us, were connected to everybody on earth, and that there was a God. And so it was just phenomenal. And then we were taught to don't talk to anybody, go in the next room, and you will draw in a mandala, which is a circle, and that's a Jungian technique where it is supposed to bring chaos together. And I drew this flower and the sun and the grass, and I had no idea what that meant. And then we went to lunch because food grounds you. And then we are going to come back after lunch and sit in a circle and explain our drawings, what happened. And so I thought I'd been on the floor about 20 minutes, but I'd been on the floor almost 4 hours.
Oh,
So I really lost time and space, which, you go into another dimension then. And so I went to lunch, came back, and we all sat around, and I watched some people tell about their drawings, and nobody mentioned another breath came into them. So I didn't mention that. And because, see, we don't want to look weird. And so when she saw my drawing, she said, "Oh, that's a rebirth. You had a rebirth." And I had no idea what that meant. And I just said, "Okay, well." So then I didn't want to go. The guys were everybody's going out for pizza and a movie that night. I thought, no, I'm staying here in this nice, safe place. And so when you leave and you go into an altered state and you come back, you're not quite the same. Um, and then by Friday, because that was Wednesday, I said, you got to get yourself together because you're going to go out, and I'm supposed to lead 3 other cars to Newark Airport. That was Saturday. And you'll figure this out. You'll figure out what happened to you. And so it took me over a year to figure out that that was the Holy Spirit, and that's what I had experienced.
wow. You're speaking into that idea of after the experience, allowing time to take that in, allowing time to sit with it, allowing time to have it kind of soak in. And I love that you didn't rush yourself, even though it took another year afterwards. I love that you didn't rush yourself. And that, to me, in the way that I see these things, is another way I can feel into if a spiritual experience is really a spiritual experience or if it is a function of mental illness. Because
Yes,
oftentimes a spiritual experience doesn't have a compulsion or a drive or a need to like hurry up right now and do something. Does that resonate when I say that?
yes, uh-huh. And
Um,
then after that happened, when I came back to work, all these people, different kinds of spiritual experiences, my clients were coming in, and they were all really different. And I thought to myself, if these people are having these, and I believe them, and I had mine, other people are having these, right? And then I decided to get a doctorate from the Union Institute, and my thesis was naming spiritual experiences. So that's what I studied.
You're listening to Out of the Fog, and I'm talking with the Reverend Karen E. Herrick, PhD. She's the author of Psychology of the Soul and the Paranormal. You can find out more about Karen and her work at KarenEHerrick.com. I'd love to, in the few minutes we have left together, I'd love to hear a little bit about your understanding of how near-death experiences and a belief in reincarnation can also help open perspective and improve mental health, kind of change the way that we go through this life.
Okay, well, I don't know about reincarnation, but let's just take a near death first. Um, because some people like me didn't believe there was a God, because I thought in an alcoholic home it's too messy down here. God wouldn't be interested. And but after that, of course, I believed there was a higher power or God. And then in studying Jung, I believe that I did have a purpose, and I didn't exactly know what that purpose was. Was it becoming a therapist? Was there more? But I do believe I have a purpose, and I still work on that. And then And then I spent time to stop thinking and just breathing and taking in life, in an easier way. Um, so I think when you're more anchored in life that there is a higher power that's going to take care of you, it makes you happier and you're not afraid to die then, which is Freud said why people don't want to talk about it because they're so afraid of it. So they just keep it all bottled up until, they get cancer or something, then they've got to face it. And they have such fear because they haven't really studied the other side that there may be another way and there may be a route for you to have to leave your body in your spiritual body, because I believe that we have two bodies, your physical body and your spiritual body. And your spiritual body is shaken down to a molecular level in it stores in your solar plexus and goes up the vagus nerve, which becomes stronger with vibration. Your whole body vibrates, and then it goes out the top of your head usually, and you have a cord, the silver cord that's also attached to the vagus nerve, and that goes out there like this elastic that lets you breathe from your physical body. And then you're out there flying around and you see whatever you're supposed to see. And then they always say something pulls me back. I got pulled back in, and they never know what that is. But I guess it was their time, and they come back. And then I understand that when you're out there, it's something like, homing pigeons. When they come from Brooklyn to New Jersey, they know how to go back to Brooklyn because they have that homing route. Well, we do too, apparently. So when we're out there flying around, we go where we're supposed to go, and that really changes your life. Now, reincarnation, the clients that I've had with that, I mean, they just really believe they had that. They died on the Titanic, and I had this woman, coming in, sobbing because she had relived that, and I said, okay, well, you're all right now, so let's just learn everything we can learn about what happened to the Titanic, and I think you're going to be fine. You just got to have to breathe this in, that you receive this information that normally is veiled over, because I do believe that we have past lives, but that we're not always able to see them because it's enough sometimes just handling this life.
Yes, that's true. I often say to my students that the life that means the most is always the one that we're living right now. And
Right.
that, well, there can be useful information gleaned from past lives, but the focus of the learning and the engagement is as I see it meant to be on this life that we're leaving. It's leading. It's easy to get caught up in the horror and sorrow of the Titanic.
Right.
Yeah. Mm. Now,
Especially when it hits you that happened to you.
well, and to be able to have a safe place to talk about that, where no, but you didn't tell that person they were nuts and they should get out of out of your office. To have a
No.
safe place to express that and really feel into what you're feeling is so important, no matter what the experience is.
Yes. That's why I have webinars on internet so that I can teach other therapists that they don't have to have had one, but they can help somebody else come in and out of that experience and to learn from it.
How can listeners connect with you and some of those webinars? How can find out more about your work?
On the website, KarenEHerrick.com, there's a schedule there, I believe, supposed to be for my webinars. And also, there's other free podcasts and other people that have interviewed me so they can, learn more about me and see me in action, so to speak.
um, for people listening who are starting to maybe feel a little bit more comfortable talking about and thinking about their own spiritual and paranormal experiences, what would you like to be sure that they know? What do you want them to take away from this?
Oh, what I want them to take away from this is that half of life is showing up. So anything that you're wondering about, you're not going to find sitting in your couch in your house usually. Um, there used to be a cartoon of an adult child, an alcoholic solving a problem, and they were on the couch with a blanket over their head. So that's not going to work. So you have to get up, go to the library, go to Barnes and Nobles, Google a book that you're interested in the subject, and and learn about it. And then there's a million podcasts on Google or YouTube, and go on there and listen to some of that. And then really they're all welcome to, just if they have questions, to write me. I was a secretary too in this life, so I type over 100 words a minute, and I don't mind answering questions, because I think sometimes just one question can really help somebody. And that would be Karen at KarenHerrick.com. But that would be on the website, also my email.
So Karen at KarenEHerrick.com. Sometimes being able to reach out and get a little ping back, even from someone you don't know, hearing somebody's voice on a podcast,
Right.
right, as sending an email to someone who was a stranger, and that email comes back with warmth and connection. We're living in times where we're so disconnected from each other, and where our hackles are up and resistance to each other and everything else is at its height. One of the ways in which spiritual experiences can change us is that they may also help us be more understanding of and tolerant and open to other people. So if you have questions, ask the questions. If you want to know, don't sit there with a blanket over your head. If you want to know, like, go find out.
Right.
Oh, Karen, thank you so much for talking to me, and thank you for the good work you're doing in the world.
Well, you're very welcome, and thank you for what you do.
I've been talking with the Reverend Karen E. Herrick, PhD. She's the author of Psychology of the Soul and the Paranormal. You can find out more about Karen and her work at KarenEHerrick.com. I've been saying that over and over. Now I'm going to spell it. So are you ready? It's Karen, the letter E, Herrick, Herrick, KarenEHerrick.com. Her email address is there if you've got questions. You can also find out about upcoming webinars and figure out how to get your hands on that very interesting book, Psychology of the Soul and the Paranormal. And of course, you're always welcome over at KarenHager.com. It's a great place to find out about upcoming classes and events. You can even book a private session with me there if you're so inclined. And if you follow me on Instagram, where I'm Fog City Psychic, oh, the fun never ends over there. It's jigsaw puzzles and pictures of Maisie the dog and whatever else is sparking my fancy that day. It'll show up on Instagram. So I'm Fog City Psychic over there. And thank you for listening today. Together we are spreading a little more light in the world, and a little more light is always a good thing. Until next time, I'm wishing you peace.